Hi, ladies and gentlemen. There are a couple of objectives for today's video. The first one is that you are able to represent a decimal value using a bar model, that you can represent that value in words, and that you can also represent it as a fraction. So I'm going to do the first one in each section for you. If you are at school following along with this, you need to have a utensil, a writing utensil in your hand that you can make corrections as you're listening. And if you're at home, it would also be helpful to have your sheet in front of you. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to start with number 1. Make sure that you are also at number 1. Make sure your name is at the top. That's always important. This is the key. This says shade grid to show each decimal and then write it in words. I'm just going to box my action words so that I know what to do. The first thing I need to do is to shade the grid to show each decimal and then write it in words. So I'm going to make sure that I do everything that I'm supposed to do. We know that this 5 right here is in what's called the tenths place. Tenths. And we have 5 tenths. Looking at our bar model below, we can see it's been divided up into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The really wonderful thing about decimals is that they're all based on a 10 model. So every time you get 10 more of them, you're going to move to your next place value. So this whole bar right here represents one whole. And since it's been divided up into tenths, each of these boxes right here represents 1/10. So this would be 1/10. If we shaded in both of these, that would be 2/10. If we shaded in all 3 of these, that would be 3/10. And so on. I'll finish filling these in for you. You didn't need to do this, but I just want to make sure that you know how this works. Once we get to 9/10, we move to 1 whole. So if the whole thing here was shaded in, we would be at 1 whole. Now our directions tell us to shade grid to show each decimal and then write it in words. So I'm going to shade in 5/10. So there's 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 4/10, 5/10. In words, I'm going to say 5/10. And I want you to notice that I did not write the digit 5 like this. That would not be in words. So I'm just going to cross that out so we don't get confused. And tenths, that THS at the end. Now to write it as a fraction, I have 5/10. Now if you saw something out there and you're like, oh, I noticed something that it's also equivalent to a half, good for you. We are going to simplify our fraction as well. And I notice that a factor of both 5 and 10 is 5. So I'm going to divide the top and bottom by 5. And 5 divided by 5 is 1, 10 divided by 5 is 2. So the fraction equivalent for 5/10 is going to be 1/2. Okay, I'm going to skip B and C and I'm going to go to number 2. For this one right here, it says give the decimal for each shaded grid and then write it in words. So I'm going to give the decimal and then write it in words. I can see that I have 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 4/10, and 5/10 filled out. So my decimal is 5/10. And if I write this in words, it is 5/10. And I know from what I had previously, if I write this as a fraction, 5/10, which is the same as 1/2. And if we notice here, we can see that half of our grid is shaded in. Now, if this one was a little bit tricky for you and you learned some things as I was talking about the first one, go back and fix B and C, just to make sure you totally understand it. All right, let's switch gears and move to the second page. So you need to turn your paper and open up to page 2, and it's going to look like this at the top. All right, so this one says we need to shade grid to show each decimal and then write it in words. So shade the grid and then write it in words. Now this one to you should look a little bit different. And you can see that we have another number right here. And that 5 in this case is in the hundredths place, not hundreds, the hundredths. And every time we have 500, or every time we have 10 hundredths, then we have 1/10. So here what I notice is I have 6/10. So I notice that this is shaded. There's 1, 2, 3. If I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we have our original set of tenths, but then we have hundredths that go with them because each of those tenths have been divided into 10 pieces. So I have 6/10, so I'm going to shade in 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 4/10, 5/10, and then 6/100. Oh, sorry, 5/100. So I'm going to say 60 hyphen 5 hundredths for this one. Hundredths. There we go with that one. All right, so this means that not only do I have 6/10, but I have 60 hundredths, because that's shaded in with these lines right here, plus 5 more hundredths. So I have 65 hundredths, which is the same as 6/10 plus 5 hundredths. All right, number 4A asks me to give the decimal for each shaded grid. So if I look at this, I can see that I have 1/10, because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hundredths make 1/10. So I have 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 4/10, 5/10. Oh, I forgot to circle my action words, or box them rather. So give the decimal for each shaded grid. Okay, so I can write this two ways. I can say that I had 5/10, or I can say that I have 50 hundredths. Because if I count these, I would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50. Perhaps I should have just gone 10 times 5. That would have saved me. So in this, because I have 100, that's 100 total boxes, that's my whole, and I have 50 out of 100. I can simplify this by dividing by 50, because 50 is a factor of both numbers, and I have 1/2. All right. Right here this says on our last page, so you should be turned to your last page, use the place value chart to write each number in standard form. So I'm going to write each number and use the place value chart, standard form and expanded form. Okay, so I have 5 and 65 hundredths. Where I have that and, that lets me know that that's where my decimal point is going to be. The 5 is a whole number, and 65 hundredths is part of my decimal that is less than 1. So I have 5 ones, then my decimal point, 6/10 and 5 hundredths, 5 and 65 hundredths. In standard form, I would write this as 5 and 65 hundredths. In expanded form, I have 5 wholes plus 6/10 plus 5 hundredths.